thanks for coming today. Beth and I are going to tag team this demo, and I'm the technical guy, and she's the artist. And you're going to learn a lot more from her than you're going to learn from me. But I'll start it off and talk a little bit about the equipment and how to make pens and things like that. But first of all, this was how I started with the burning, and that was because I was into carving decoys and ducks, and this is a canvasback head. And what I was doing at that time is I bought a detailer, which is this little device right here. And the detailer at that time was fairly inexpensive. Now they're about $100. There's a coal wood, and then there's the this is a coal wood from New Jersey, Longwood, New Jersey, and this is a pretty nice little unit. It's really simple to use, but it only has one pen, and that's what I was using to do the underneath the bills and down in here like that. And so then when I started turning, I figured it would be a nice opportunity to do some, something more decorative, and this was an obsessive compulsive effort that was first carved to be like feathers, and then I went and I burnt each of the barbs, and I could do about 3 feathers a night, and it took forever. But the effect was kind of neat, and I sort of enjoyed that. And I've used wood burning to augment some other turnings that I've done in the past. The other burners to consider is like the one that Beth has, is the Burnmaster, and they have different packages for the Burnmaster, and you can get them from a number of different outlets, but Packard has a pretty good package price where you can get just the Burnmaster, you can get the Burnmaster with all the tips, and they come with this type of a handle with these kind of screw parts here where you put your tip on, and these are the tips that they have. And you can get the whole array, and the Burnmaster Eagle that comes with 2 of these, you can set up 2 with 2 different types of tips that simply insert, and then you comes with a little Phillips screwdriver, and you can put that together, and you can have a couple of different tips for different purposes. And the trick with this one is that they've got to clear the hole, but you don't want them to come out, because then they'll roll on the floor and you'll never find them again. But you can set these up, and you can have 2 different types at any time, and then you can change them out. I had a friend of mine that I gave him the detailer, and I said, build me something really, really honky. And he built this one. We nicknamed it Scorched Earth. It's 15 amps with a 3 amp fuse, and it's a left-right. It takes 2 different ones, and you can make your own little cords for them out of lamp cord that are pretty flexible, and they give you a lot of opportunity to be able to do intricate designs.
So are we up for questions?
Sure, any time.
So lamp cord is enough to run that?
It works for me, and I built several of them, and we can crank this up, and actually at the end of this demonstration I want you to try, and so you can try this unit, you can try the detailer. I've got a Burnmaster also that I brought, and you can get a first-hand opportunity to mess with it. Now, the other thing I've got handouts for you, and the other thing I wanted to mention is there is one very, very, very good YouTube sponsored by American Woodworker, and it's a video on how to use a battery charger and convert it to a wood burner. And it's the best one I've seen, and you'll be able to go out, and I've got the address here in the handout, so you'll be able to download it. And what the beauty of it is, he walks through the whole process. It has to be a manual battery charger, not an automatic. And he tells you the brand and where to get it and the whole bit. And then he uses a dimmer switch, and it has to be a Levitron or whatever that he gives you the specifics on it, because that's the one he says works best and it doesn't burn out, etc. And then he actually walks through talking about what wires to cut, what wires to put together, how to do it exactly, where to put your circuit breakers and that type of thing, or your fuse. And it's one of the best that I've seen, and I would, if I didn't have a wood burner, I would certainly consider the fact that, you know, you're talking about spending $175 for the Burnmaster, and if you buy it with all the tips and with two of these, it comes up to like $259. If you do the battery charger type thing, that's like a $50 item, and it's a $20 dimmer switch, and the rest of the stuff is things you probably have on hand. So it's worth looking at. There are different types of pens, and I've over the years amassed a pretty good collection. I think my favorite pen is probably the razor tip. It's really small and light, and it's ported, and it doesn't get near as hot as some of the others. There's a litany of different manufacturers that are out there. Some of them have pen tips that unplug, and you can buy extra tips to go in them, like this one. I don't know if you can see that one, Larry, but that's one version of an exchangeable tip. I think the Burnmaster tip is a little better, because this is just a friction fit, and it doesn't get as hot as one that has a mechanical fit like these screws. Now that the one that I want to share with you, and I've got a handout for this too, and that's making your own. And this is a phenolic tube, and this came off of a website that's out there called fishcarver.com. Have any of you been familiar with that?
Towards the camera if you can.
Okay. And that's a phenolic tube. You use copper tubing on the end, and you use, I think it's like 14 gauge wire internally, and then you fill it with a polyurethane. And he's got a new updated plan that's not near as complicated, and it uses the same type of tube, and you can go out on eBay and people will sell this type of phenolic tube. It's pretty popular, pretty easy to get. Now, the new version has this little device, and this is kind of simple. This is a bus strip that came from a Radio Shack, and it's $3.25, and you could make 2, 4, 6, 8. You could each one you have to use 2 of these, and the way to get at them, which is kind of tricky, is you have to use a heat gun to melt the plastic, and then after you melt the plastic, this little tube that's made out of brass with 2 screws in it will fall out, and then you end up, and I'll pass this around, you end up with a device like this, where you have the 2 screws, and you solder these little bus strips to the copper tubing that's coming out, and then you've got something that you can change out the tips with this. So you can make one pen, and you can have a bunch of different tips.
How much have you got in that?
Well, I've got the RC connector on the back. I've got some copper wire that probably came out of Romex or something that is scrap. So I'd suppose with the maybe $2, if, you know, maybe, if that. Now you need this nichrome wire, and you can buy that. And one of the things that I made up here, and I'm going to pass around, this is the Molly Winton basket weave thing. And the way this is done, she has a kit that Packard sells, and the kit comes with the wire, and it comes with 2 nails, okay? And what you do is you, depending on the size that you want and the size of the wire, the gauge, you take the thing out of here, And I can get the wire, the static electricity's got it stuck in here.
What
Okay.
gauge wire are you using? Nichrome?
Yeah, this is nichrome wire that she provides, and there's all sorts of different thicknesses of the wire. The fish carver, I think he sells like 16 gauge, and this is like 22 gauge. And with this one, you just put it on the nail, and you just wrap it around. And the idea is to make you want to make a little, round thing of, can you see that? Okay. I'm going to
Looks
pass.
like a spring.
Looks like a little spring, and you can't make it too big. You can't make it, this long. It just won't work that well. Here, let me pass that around and take a look at it.
You can explain how each one of these different tips are used? And
Yeah, and Beth's going to go into that quite a bit, and we'll play with the basket weave also. One of the other things I made for the fun of it, and I haven't even tried this one yet, but this is another piece that I just pounded out. Now this uses the fish carver, 16 gauge or whatever, nichrome wire, and the way the wire works best is if you flatten it and you make it thinner, and that's where you'll get the heat will build up, as opposed to if you left it all the same thickness. And you'll notice on these, commercial ones, they're pretty thin when they get down to the knife edge here, and that's where the heat will build. Is right in here, where there's the least amount of resistance that's going through the wire. And so that's why you want to, when
you
you're
set the heat by power, or do you by color of the wire, or?
yeah. Well, you can experiment, and Beth is going to get into this a little bit. Is that what you want to do? Is you want to have a scrap piece of wood off to the side, where you turn it on, and then you see how it's doing. If it's not hot enough, you turn it up a little bit, and it's all trial and error. And every tip is different too. I mean, you'll get one that, you'll turn it to 2, and that's fine. Another one you have to turn to 6 to get it to go. But that's how you can do that. And let's see, there's another place on the internet, Sawdust Connection, and it lists all the different types of tips that are out there and the wattage and everything for them. Anyway, that's pretty much the story on the tips. And let me hand this out right now so that you can take it with you, and I don't forget to see if you have any questions on this. But this is how to make one of these burners. There's some. I think I've got some more in here so everybody can have one. The tips they get warm after a while. And when I was doing this exercise, I had a couple of pens. I would go back and forth because even if they're covered with cork, or they're covered with a rubber tube, or they've got this nice foam on it, they still get really warm. And and after you've been working on it, Beth will tell you after a while you just got to give it a break, and it's just a hazard of doing it. So, any questions on making your own burners, your own pens?
I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, on the Detail Master, on one of those pens, I burned things pretty hot, pretty fast,
Yeah.
and I was smelling plastic, and I didn't know what I was smelling, and I melted the front of the pen.
Yeah.
I like the Burn Master. I like that.
Yeah,
big
this
red
big-
pen. That doesn't get hot.
No, it doesn't get near as hot as the little pens.
It's big, but
Yeah. Well, these are kind of the same design as the early ones that you got when you were 12 years old in the Boy Scouts, and at the time when kids could have things like that, and you could make pictures and stuff. The olden days. And I'm gonna give you a copy of this with all of the
I
websites.
brought some of the nichrome wire in case anybody would like a piece. I didn't bring nails for you. You have to get those yourself, but the kit would be much cheaper.
Actually, the Molly Winton kit from Packard is pretty nice. It comes with, you can get it with just the wire and stuff, but it comes with one of these Burn Master pens, which will work on virtually any of these.
Molly Winton also on her website, well, she doesn't have it listed on her website. If you'll email her, she'll send you a price sheet. She's got an instruction book on
Yeah.
making the tips, and she sells 2 of the different size basket weaves.
Right.
And they're like $5 a piece. And how much are tips if you buy just a tip through one of the supply houses?
Well, if you were going to buy one of these, razor tips, which I really like, they're 25 to 30 bucks a piece.
But that's the whole pin.
That's a whole pen.
Oh, okay.
Rather than just the tip.
Just the tips are usually $5 or $6.
8 or 9.
8 or 9?
7 to
7 to 10? Okay.
Under 10.
Around 10.
Around 10, okay.
I don't think I need to buy any more, so,
You haven't bought any for a while.
not for a while. But the thing that's kind of fun, there's that fish carver has some very nice information on it, not only how to build one of those, but I started getting into I was going to do some fish carving on some of my bowls, and what I want to do is use this type of tip, and the fishcarver.com shows you how to do it, and the idea is to make scales, and what you do is you just lay them down and burn in each individual scale, and then you just do just the opposite as you come across, so that you have a fish scale pattern. And he tells you exactly how to make these with his wire, and you end up hammering it down on a little anvil, and then you use a Dremel to carve your little circle and sharpen it up, and these are very effective. And you can make different sizes because fish scales aren't all the same size. And if you get into realistic fish carving, people do amazing things with scales, and it just looks so good. The other thing that I wanted to cover briefly before I turn it over to Beth is I want to talk about ways to transfer patterns. And years ago, not that many years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I went into Staples, and the guy says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I'm looking for carbon paper." And the kid says, "What? What's carbon paper?" And so I said, "How about transfer paper?" "Oh yeah, we've got some of that, And the nice thing about transfer paper now, today you can buy it, and it comes in white and yellow and red. So if you want to transfer something on walnut, like Carl does, I'm sure, having a white marker or something on some of the dark woods is a good way to follow the pattern. One of the things that I read about recently is using a chart pack blending marker, and it's got xylene in it. And what you do with xylene is you take, and this is we're gonna do it and see if it comes out as well as it did at home. But what you do is you get a laser printer. It can't be an inkjet printer. And laser printers were outrageously expensive years ago, and I picked up one at Staples or Office Depot or something for I think $75 or $80 for black and white, and it was like Brother or some one of those manufacturers. And that thing is great, especially for doing a lot of handouts and things like that. It's a lot cheaper to print it out on a laser than it is on an inkjet. So anyway, the idea is you take and you go out on the internet and you find some clip art or something that's kind of cool that you think would make a neat looking design, and then you take it, and what I should do is put this down with a piece of tape or something to keep it in place. But I will, you have it all, okay. Now I can't blame it on not having tape, okay. All right, well, you put it down on your piece that you're gonna work on. Then you take this smelly xylene pen and you just work it back and forth. And it literally will lift the ink off of what you're doing. and it'll transfer it to the wood.
Where did you get your xylene pen?
The xylene pens are $4.95 at National Art.
And they are in stock. I picked one up this morning.
And then you've got something you can come back and work with.
Hold that up under the camera there, Bob.
And it's kind of messy looking. But
Cool.
anyway, that's one way to do it. Now, another way to do it is to use a stencil film. And the only problem with the stencil film is you need to make sure you print it the right side. And this one I did. Okay. Now stencil film, and I've got a source for where you can get that. It's at ultracarver.com. And you can take your stencil film and you can run it through an inkjet printer, or you can run it through a laser printer. And here's the film, and it's really designed for turbo carving with an air turbine tool. If you're doing piercing or using the turbine, if you want to do gun stocks and things like that. And what you do is you peel it apart, and the beauty of this is that you can take this and put it on a bowl or some other surface that's round or concave, and you just lay it down and just stick it into place. And then you can just burn right through it, and you just peel it off or rub it off with an eraser or whatever. And the only problem is it's a it's a one-trick pony. That's it. It's done.
So is there any issue with burning through that film and smelling?
I don't have any problem with it. Just burn it. Have you had any problem with it, Carl?
I've not used that, but what you did cheaper perhaps than film is wax paper.
Yeah.
Just use wax paper in an inkjet printer, and that you'll get color. You can get color that way too.
Right.
But you have to be very careful when you lay it on your piece. Otherwise, just a little bit of this and it's out of focus there, isn't it? You see?
Yeah.
So,
A little
With
bit out
that
of focus.
laser printer too, you can use, they make those tips on the Whisper and Follow, the wood burners that they make.
Yeah.
They have one that's a flat disc.
Yep.
And you can take those laser printer pieces and just run that across that, and it'll transfer that laser printer to it also.
Just the heat is the deal.
Because laser is depends on the heat.
Oh,
I was going to do that. You're stealing my thunder there, Mike.
I'll edit that out.
No, that's okay. That's all right. You can also use Mylar film if you want to pick that up at National Art and run that through a printer and stuff like that. But the heat transfer is probably the best one. It really is nice because this is a razor tip heat transfer. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but this is wonderful. And the way this works is that you take it, and again you're using one of these. Let's do something. Probably getting warm enough.
And so that's just
It's just
laser
heat.
jet, laser.
It's a laser
jet
printer.
Anything you printed, you could transfer.
Yeah, on a laser.
And that's called a razor tip?
This is a razor tip, but other varieties make this kind of, I think my wife even has one in her quilting, in fabric stuff, where, you don't have to buy, they make heat transfer pens for fabric and all sorts of other things that do the same thing. Well, that's the gist of it. I mean, you just need to take your time, and it does transfer all of that toner that is on there will transfer onto the wood. And the heat transfer usually works a little better and it's a whole lot more detailed than, let's say, the Xylon, which kind of can smear a little bit sometimes. But anyway, with that, you have a guide as to what you're wanting to burn, and I'm going to turn this over to Beth.
Would your heat gun accomplish the same thing?
I don't think so. I think it would burn your paper.
wouldn't
Burn
be
the paper, okay.
contact
Yeah.
also.
You know, what you want is literally an iron is what it amounts to.
You need the pressure.
And you need a little bit of pressure, and you just need to, you gotta play with it until you make sure you have the right heat also. And,
Okay.
Carl, do you have any to add to that at all, or,
Clothing iron.
yeah, you could use
If it
a,
was on a piece of flat stock, you could use an iron knife for your ironing your shirts.
Or
Yeah.
a soldering iron with a.
yeah,
with the
soldering
appropriate
iron would work. They make irons especially for doing edge banding on wood. That iron would work. So heat transfer, I prefer it because you can get a lot more detail out of the heat transfer than you can out of some of the others. But there's nothing wrong with the Xylon pen, and you can't beat this kind of stuff for wrapping around a tight curvature or something. So,
Which
with that,
one's better for wrapping around the tight curvature?
the stencil film.
What'd you call it?
Stencil film, and I will also give you a handout on all of that.
So that's kind of stretchy, so you can kind of
Well,
mold.
it's not stretchy as much as just, I'll just hand this around, you can actually feel what it's like.
Well, once you got the pattern on and it's all burned in, then can you peel the rest of the tape
Yeah.
off?
Yeah. It'll peel off, or it'll come off with an eraser, or, you know, you could scrape it off.
Of course, even the things that are burned that, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, 600 grit is a nice eraser.
Yeah, it is. That and a very sharp knife, the blade to scrape, does a good job. Okay, here's a handout that has the websites for making your own. And,
Save one of them for me.
oh, I didn't, but I'll get you one. And here is some wood burning tips and tricks to take with you.
All right. Everybody's got their own style of burning, and after you get into it, you'll see what works best for yourself or what you're trying to accomplish with it. He's got these fancy transfer items, which I envy him. I've just used carbon for so long, and when he says, where do you get the carbon at, I had some friends that had some old carbon paper that was like between sheets of stuff they used to use and throw it out. So I got their old carbon paper, use it over and over, and so basically I've done the same thing as him, only I went to a lot more trouble because you got to trace each and every line where I like his. So now this is the same thing as this one I had done previously. You put this one out on the web the other day, and I thought, well, let me just go ahead and roughly do that one. And so now this is my pen. This is one of the ones I've had a long time. It's a little better than the first ones I ever had because I do have a control temperature. You can dial the temperature you want. Unfortunately, the dial won't stay where it's supposed to, so it takes a piece of duct tape, redneck it, and that one you can, because it's just stays hotter. If I stay on, I've got just a cup, set it in, keep it warm, and or keep it from burning anything. Now another thing is too, is I use, this is just out of your cereal box, but I find like when I'm turning this stuff around and so forth, it turns a lot easier and it doesn't smudge as bad whenever I use that to turn things on. It just works a lot better. And I use this one with its tips for a lot of stuff. I got the Burn Master. I really like it. It does a lot of things this one won't do, but I can't get it to do some things I do. I apply a lot of pressure on some of the stuff I do, and I do that because it's my own personal taste, is I like for it to stand out. If you're just going to go for a quiet little drawing, then you're probably going to just use a softer touch and not burn it as deep. But I really like for it to stand out. And so basically, now to me, I've always got to pull the pen to me. Now, if I'm not happy with what it looks like, I mean, I just reach over and pull it there and see how it's gonna burn, or how it's cutting, if not gonna literally be cutting. That's got a little burr on the end of it, I see.
Do you have to sharpen that tip occasionally?
I do. I see that some of them says to use sandpaper. I've used anything from sandpaper to real fine files, different things, and some of them even say clean the tips, like on the bottom of a screen, like you pour your tea through or something. That doesn't do anything for me. You can try it if you like it, and I don't guess I have as much carbon buildup on it to take off like that.
This is one razor tip makes that
Yeah.
you can just draw it through.
Oh yeah,
Pull it,
that'd be good.
and it's not very expensive.
Yeah. So different tips, I imagine you need to kind of sharpen them different ways. You get down to those really fine ones, then like I said, I've taken a little fine file to them a time or two, but
Could you use a leather strop for like your carving tools?
I've never tried it. I've never tried the strop with it. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work.
I've used emery cloth and things like that, because you don't want to sand away your tip.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to get too ferocious
I
with it.
use old 300, 400 grit sandpaper after it's used
After it's
up
been
on the
used.
lathe. That works well.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
when you get it really hot, then you get more of the carbon buildup also.
Yeah. Now when you start off burning, and so you never just, to me, I've got to put it down there and I bring it a little bit at a time till I kind of get a feel for how I'm doing it. And I always have to bring it towards me. I've seen some people where they can burn away from. I can't control it that way. To me, is you've got to put the pen down and you got to bring that to you. I don't know how well you can see this.
Are you using the whole side of the pen there, or are you just?
I'm
hitting
just
it
using I'm just using the tip and the edge upon occasion, but most at this point just the tip. This is going to get boring, I'm afraid. I'm not going to try to stay on one until it's done, just to do a few little thingies to emphasize on what I do. After you get it burned, and some things you won't even want to do an outline on, because you take, like, if you've got for instance, just like a ball, you're trying to do a ball in shadow and light, you probably would want to do a type of stipple type of thing to where you know where you're wanting to go on it. So you're going to use a rounded one, and you're probably going to really get in heavy on one side of this circle or ball and make it light on the other side. So you really don't want to cut into it, or if you do, you're probably going to do it fairly fine. And again, it's a preference on what you're going to do, what the effect is you're trying to do. You have to set your pen down and kind of stroke it a little. If you pick it up and lay it back down, you go back a little bit farther than just trying to pick up exactly where you left off.
So that tip probably holds the heat more consistently than the real thin wires also.
Yeah, it's a hotter, well, I keep it kind of hotter. You can get those others as hot as where you see the red glow on the end, and I've never really had this one where I've seen a red glow on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Probably
lay it
not, because I want this to have a little more depth to it, So I am actually I'm not pressing quite as hard as you might think. It
It looks like you're barely touching it.
yeah, it's really not that much. And if you want to go for something like delicate flowers and everything, then I might do part of it with this. But on the other hand, or like a lace type of thing, I might just turn around and just use the Burn Master on it with the finer tips. Again, is you're going to be doing things that, if you've got a feel for drawing, if you've ever drawn or got a feel for drawing, then you know where you want it lighter, where you want it darker, and just follow it just like you were going to draw a picture.
And if you don't have any knowledge of that?
Do you ever doodle? If you doodle, just keep on doodling.
Okay.
Can you reburn to get a little deeper or a little darker?
I have. I can go darker and deeper if I want to, but it is darn hard to go lighter after you went deep and dark. Yeah.
If you do a light stroke and you see you want a little darker, you go over it again.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you take like for instance, there'll be times when I want to put a edge around a piece, and I don't want to take the time to draw it necessarily, but I know about how wide I'm going to make it, so I can take a ruler. This has got a metal edge on it, and I can lay it down there and I can say, okay, I want it to be just about there. And so down you start down there with it.
Probably don't want to use a plastic ruler, right?
It will be far more interesting.
You're free for 'em.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can go down through there and make yourself some sharp lines. And unfortunately, I don't think I got off the metal edge. Let's try that again.
Put a nice burn on your ruler though.
Yeah.
I
You have to warm it up.
trimmed off some of the wood that was building up behind that metal piece.
Get that out of your way.
Yeah. But it's, generally speaking, as you go down through there, and okay, it's a little lighter than I wanted. Okay, well, I can take just, I can either, number one, lay the ruler back down there, or now the fact is Doug already cut me a groove cut, and I can get that darker cut back in there, if that's what I want. See? And you take like, after you've done that, then if you want to, darken up that edge a little bit more, I've got another pen that I like to do that with. You want to burn that edge. And you can get a nice edge if you want to. You go back later and you want to do an edge like on that. Like for instance, I took and did these edges on this with just like that. You just go around it till you get the color or shading you want, ever how dark you want to do it. And then you get back to like this. This is where I come in and go in underneath that cut that I've just made. And that way you can make that leaf stand out a little more. And again, you're going to do it as much or as little dark as you want. Now this, as you're in there closer, you're probably going to have that a little darker. And then just keep coming out a little bit until you get it out to where you want it to not be quite as dark. Wherever you want it to stand up a little bit.
If you want to incorporate that on a bowl, how could you do that? I mean, like, say a walnut bowl or something, would that stand?
Yeah, you just want to be careful about your darker woods. I worked really hard to burn this a boxer dog on my brother-in-law's piece of cedar. He loved this dog, and the dog passed away. So he gave me the picture and the cedar and said, can you put this on this piece of cedar. And I mean, he's had that thing sanded down where it was as slick as glass. And this is great. I got on there and I burned that all on there and it just looked fantastic. And then I turned around and made the mistake of I put some of the, like the polyurethane sealer on it. It just hid that burn. It was just gone. And so forth. It darkened the wood, and so you lost the burn in that. So Troy, my husband, got to take it out the shop and sand it off. So he brings it back in. Okay, I burned it all back on again, and that's quite a chore because it was a pretty good sized dog. And I burned it all back on there again, and I'll try this different kind of, it wasn't polyurethane, I can't think exactly what it was. And I slapped that on there. Didn't do quite as bad, but I wasn't happy with it. Back out to the garage, he went with it to his sander and run it through for me again. He says, you gotta figure this thing out. Oh, okay. So, I can't think of her name right now. There's she's excellent wood burner in Australia. And I emailed her and I says, what do you use on this darker wood like that? And she said, well, use the polyurethane. And it's a water. Instead of the oil, it's a water thing. Well, it don't make your wood, so to speak, as pretty as I like the cedar wood to be. But still, you can see your burn. And you take like, this is some of that pour-on type of stuff. And I kind of like it if you're working with wood that's either split or trying to split on you or something. I can put that on there and it don't split no more.
And then, do you incorporate color into any of your burning?
Yeah, if you look real close, you can see some yellow eyes there, and there's one or two display pieces over there that I've put some color in on it. I've got the yellow that's on some of those eyes there. I used believe it or not, a highlighter, highlighter pen.
Hold that under the camera.
Oh, sure, yeah. So yeah, if you look at that real close, you'll see that I've added a little yellow there, and you'll see a little bit of white. Well, the white is the acrylic, yeah, and there we go. But the yellow is a highlighter, one of the yellow pen highlighters. Now this, I have tried using those permanent ink pens on it, and it bled. And I've kept this just to remind myself is that it didn't bleed at the time I put it on it. It's when I come back and was putting finish on it, it turned loose and bled. And so now this is the same pattern, and instead of using the permanent things, I burned that, and then I put a I can't remember if I used the glue that's got glitter in it or whether I used fingernail polish with glitter. I've used both. You can get your fingernail polish with different colors and glitter, and I kind of like that effect. I like to try things that are a little different. But yeah, the white is acrylic, and I just put that on as kind of a highlight thing. This is this is kind of like where you have you want things a little finer than like this, so you don't burn it as heavy. You don't cut, or you just don't start off as heavy, and you just lightly go in between around it. This was, I wanted kind of this zigzag checker look to it.
So that piece is just burnt, though.
Mm-hmm.
The dark.
Yep. Yep, these do not have any color.
Right.
These are just burned. And, okay. Yeah, you'll find that there will be areas that you like better than others. Everybody's that way, I think. And after you go to getting a feel for it, of how dark to get it in some areas and don't make it as dark in others.
So the area, the outside of the flower there, where it's textured there, is that just the round tip on it?
This one? Yes.
Right.
Yes, I just used a round tip and just went in and depending how long you hold it down and how much you move it around. Just a stipple type of effect.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the one I want. See, the handy thing about this is, like he says, you turn this thing on here, and if you want to switch from one to the other, you just reach over here and throw a little switch and throw it from left to right on the thing, and if you're, see, I got the right one. No, I didn't. And you're in a hurry for this thing to heat up, turn that thing up, and just,
Watch it glow.
yeah, watch it, see it glow.
There?
Yeah. Yeah, if you're in a hurry to heat it up, it's not a problem. See, this one is a much finer tip, and if I'm going to get into,
Looks like you can see much more what you're doing there too. The
Oh.
tip is so small.
that could be.
Now, where'd you get the pattern for that?
I don't recall, probably off of the web.
Okay.
Is what I'm thinking. Probably off of the web. I get a lot of them off of there. Yeah, after a while you just get the, whenever you see a picture, you look at it and mentally transfer it to a board and, oh, I think I'd like to do that. And I've got a friend that's got a picture of her grandchild that I've just been dying to try. I don't know that I'm that good on people, but it's such a cute little old kid that they've got a nice picture of it. And I think you get the shading usually in black and whites that will show you much better idea of what something's going to look like.
What you got on it?
It's just a round bullet point. I think it's probably got a name for a little fancier than that, but it's just a rounded point. They've got, or I've got, I should say, one that's a little smaller. To me, as I found that it just don't use as much pressure. You don't have to change it if you don't want to. Just barely touch it. Like so. You can just barely touch it if you want to. And I do that random. So, depending on how much you want to put into it. Hold it down a little longer if you want it a little bit heavier, darker stipple.
To me, the burn master tips would be analogous to wood turning gouges.
Yeah.
You only use a couple, although
Yeah.
on the rack you might have 12 or 15.
Yeah.
The same thing with tips.
You're right.
Yeah, okay, all right, 50 then. But there's only three or four, less than a half a dozen tips that are really good.
Exactly.
Unless, there's some that are, helpful in shading, if you want certain kinds of shading effects. But other than that,
Well, his basket weave is one I haven't got one and hadn't tried it, but I can see where it would be pretty effective to give that particular effect and it be really smooth and even. That's to kind of give you an effect of that stipple effect behind the flower. And then as I did on this one, I did a heavier one up here around the flower, and then I just got lazy on the side, I guess. Didn't do as much and did it lighter. Now, point out too, I didn't sand this. You're going to sand wood, you're going to have a better when you're done with it.
I like your flower on that piece you got finished now, the big part of the leaf, did you put color on that?
No, this is just natural.
What's the finish on that one, Beth?
Polyurethane,
Well, that's what's darkened it then.
yeah, yeah. Now on the back is that pour on, you've got the two-part
Epoxy.
epoxy, thank you. When you get over the hill, yeah, it's a two-part epoxy on the back, but that's just polyurethane on the front. And it is glossy, and I've kind of, it's been experimenting going back and forth to the glossy to the, not glossy. And I know that to a lot of people, and I'm inclined to agree, it looks more professional if it's not glossy, but then there are times, glossy's okay. Now, I've went around edges of wood when I wanted to do little just pattern burns.
That's cool.
Nothing to it. And if you want to go with, like I have done, is like you do a little one right there, and you do a little bit bigger one, and a little bit higher one, and then, and see now, it don't bother me to go back and hit another if I don't think it's dark enough to suit me. And then bring it back down a little bit if you want to. And back down. And you notice that I'm not measuring, just eyeballing it. If you wanted to get real fancy, you could take and run some lines across there and then keep it down.